My name is Mike Butler. I'm an architectural photographer who specializes in lighting and big productions. Normally, you'll find me photographing high-end properties with budgets to match, be them resorts, private homes, or one-of-a-kind apartments. But early on in my career, I thought to myself, why limit this amazing lighting to expensive houses and high-end resorts? Why not take it out west? Photograph some old ghost towns with it and see what happens. And so, the Colorado Ghost Town Project was born. These ghost towns that I wanted to photograph are remnants of once thriving towns and mining communities that went bust near the turn of the century. There are only a few left standing, so I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to bring some commercial sophistication to these quickly disappearing treasures. After some research, I decided on two locations, Crystal Mill and Animas Forks, both in the rugged and beautiful state of Colorado. The first location was the Crystal Mill, which sits beside the amazing Crystal River and is nestled deep within the Colorado Rockies. Built in 1893, it used a water wheel to power an air compressor for a nearby mine. Sometimes called the Lost Horse Mill, it was placed on the National Register of Historic Landmarks in 1985. The second location, Animas Forks, was founded in 1873 and was a prosperous mining town up into the early 1900s. In its heyday, over 450 called it home, and they even published their own newspaper, the Animas Forks Pioneer. I had arranged to meet at the Denver airport fellow photographer Craig Dennis and his then girlfriend. Craig would be helping out with logistics, but more importantly, he would be shooting his own black and white sheet film of the structures. Our first objective, once we knew where we were going, was to get there. And to this Florida boy used to insanely flat paved roads, this turned out to be one heck of an adventure. Something I was totally not expecting. Not only were there precipices that would swallow the car and crew in one wrong move, in Animas there was snow in August, higher than the car, and characters to fit this extreme environment.
Look at the Jeep. Got
It's
the
a Land Cruiser, man. It's a
Land Cruiser.
Well, we spent 5 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, taking this son of a bitch 4 miles, like up and down rocks and crevices. Took a day to get here, and it's raining. Just stuck in the car. But that rain wouldn't last long, which gave us time to set camp, get a fire going, and most importantly, do some daredevil scouting. And as with all my shoots, I checked out every angle, but determined pretty quickly that the best one was right where we started.
Here we are. Set up. Ghost town. The mill across the river. Camera set up. Laptop going off.
The waterfall at the mill was a thundering, indefatigable monstrosity. I kept thinking into my city slicker way, when are they going to turn it off? But in spite of that thundering waterfall, the final image is sure to please. To allow this old mining structure to really stand out, I set up 6 1,000-watt lights just pre-dusk and lit both the main structure and supporting elements. There was even a light for the water. I had planned the shoot to coincide with the one day that the full moon comes up at dusk, and it came up right on time. The second and last shot at Crystal was of the Crystal Village, just down the road from the mill. Because the moon came up a little later, it created a much different effect, which in the end, I decided to keep. One of the things that can get lost while looking at the refined final images, even for seasoned photographers, is just how much equipment it takes for a production of this type. There are lights, stands, tripods, generators,
and hundreds of feet of cable. The list goes on. And all this equipment needs to be hauled around from shot to shot, which made for a very physical shoot. So with all that equipment packed in, we headed out of Crystal and hit the road 200 miles across Colorado to Animas Forks. While Crystal, with its thundering waterfall and looming mountains, felt almost claustrophobic, Animas was a completely different beast. It was grand on a huge scale. A peaceful valley at 11,000 feet was surrounded by snow-covered mountains, capped by a wide open blue sky. That when night fell, turned into a childbook fantasy land of stars. Animas Forks was full of dilapidated treasures to photograph. It was just a matter of deciding which ones to focus on. So after a bit of looking around, we decided to get started. This image is one of my favorite from Animas. Firstly, due to the stream that offsets the hard lines of the other elements, but also because the little shack exudes a sort of optimism in spite of the foreboding structure looming in the background, foreshadowing its fate. Also, this image has a magical sprinkling of all sorts of lighting, the moonlight, stars, dusk, and my supplemental lighting, of course. And finally, this monster, which took a full 6 hours for me to shoot. The difficulty of this image to photograph is off the scale, because for every lighting setup, I needed to slide down a 100-foot hill to the base of the structure, run extension cords from the generator through a pitch-black maze of broken boards, nails, and hidden holes, set up the light, then climb back up to the camera to see if the light even looked good. I repeated that process for nearly 6 hours. Each one of the lighting setups you see here was captured during that time frame. They would later be combined in Photoshop to complete the image. During this shot, at about 1 in the morning, the moon had yet to rise and the night had a soot blackness to it. Maybe it was the overdose of energy drinks running their course, but I remember looking around and thinking, man, I really should not be here. I got a very bad feeling about that place and wanted to get the heck out of Dodge, but I still needed to finish up the lighting, so what could I do? I crawled back into the blackness in spite of that fear and finished it up. And to capture that moment, I took this self-portrait of me high in the rafters, scared as hell to be there, but hell, there I was. So after 6 nights of shooting, I captured these 7 images, using the multiple exposure technique you saw in the last image. One of the questions I often get is how much of the image is digital and how much is real. So outside of merging multiple lighting setups like we saw, which was done to facilitate the production and reduce the equipment needed, and some minor retouches, the images are pretty much what you would see if you were there. That is, if you had deployed all that lighting. All in all, the project was a pretty big undertaking. With all that equipment, long nights in dark buildings, all the while camping the entire time. It was a true photographic adventure. I hope you enjoyed the images, and thanks for watching. If you have any questions about the project, or to purchase prints of any of the images you saw, contact me at the email below.